All right.
Hey. This is my guy's birthday today. Bam. Happy Michael Jordan birthday day. The GOAT. My favorite of all GOATs.
Yeah, he's one of the best for sure. Happy Michael Jordan birthday day. 58 years old. Okay. We see you, Michael.
Yes.
We see you, MJ, doing your thing. See you representing in the back. I got my little Michael Jordan pop collectible out. I usually don't pull him out, but I'll pull him out for his birthday. He usually just...
That's what I'm talking about.
And then I also pulled one of my favorite iconic J shoes because he's still influential in the shoe game. I pulled my cement threes out on folks, bust those infrared cement threes that everybody gives mad respect to. So,
of course,
happy birthday, MJ! And then I got my
little
pins.
Shout
out to Radical Dreams pins for my MJ lapel pins.
Well, I got my original Come Fly With Me VHS. So if anybody still got the VHS tape player, let me know. I'll let you borrow it for a small nominal fee.
Oh, yeah. Who has a VHS is the
I'm
question.
Just saying.
I'm curious to see who has that. But, you can always transfer it over to DVDs if you wanted to. Oh, and your MJ collectible.
Maybe
That's
he'll just hang up with me. Yeah, I got this one and I got this one. So
that's good. Guys. You got some, and then you got the life size right behind you. You got some
and
stuff.
The life, I don't have all the posters like I used to, but I do have a couple still around.
Yeah.
But yeah, so welcome to the show, you guys. Welcome to Girl Chat Sports with Mo and Mel. It's Wednesday, our official day. It's West Coast Wednesdays. It's Michael Jordan's birthday Wednesday. We got a lot of sports news to talk about. We've got some of Mo's friends on the show today. And here's the deal. We love to have guests, friends, family, people that support us. We love to have people on that can also give us a new take. And we're also going to play a little game to see if anyone can convince me to watch WWE. We all know in the Girl Chat Sports group that I don't even know who any of these people are, what they do. I don't know.
That's why we have to have these guys on so they can educate us a little bit, maybe get us caught up in the fandom. I mean, I used to watch it back in the day.
Yes.
But that's, years ago, eons ago. Yes. So
what's up, Nate? Thanks for checking in. Brian, for sure, Michael Jordan is the GOAT. I just, there's a couple goats. There's goats out
multiple
there.
Goats. There's female goats too. To your point of your post, there's female goats out there. It's no goats flock together. This is just one particular one that we are celebrating today. He is I feel, one of the NBA greats, of course.
Yes.
I'm a fan regardless, even though I love Kobe. I love my Lakers. You cannot not love basketball, not have one piece of Jordan. Something. No. You've got to give the man his flowers for real. So. And then tonight is match night. It's actually about to start. The Australian Open between Naomi Osaka and Serena Williams. I have it on too. And, Serena has won this 7 times in her career. And Osaka has won the past 2 years, I feel like. So this is going to be a good match.
What do you got your money on? Who got your money on today?
I don't have it. I'm impartial to both. I'm seeing 2 great, phenomenal athletes. One just happens to be younger than the other. I celebrate either one, either one. Sometimes it's time for the newbies to kind of show us what they got. And sometimes it's great to see the veterans come out and prove that they still got it. So I'm indifferent to both. Rafael Nadal took an L. That was a little unfortunate, but he's still one of the great ones. We're not going to not say Nadal's not good because he is. Shout out to Dre because that's his fanboy, and I know he's watching this match. I know he's getting ready. So shout out to all of those that are watching. But yeah, let's get our guests on because we're gonna talk Uno too. We gotta talk about the Uno strategies. Like not a lot of you guys, even with sports, we have to talk games, and part of the games is NBA fantasy, which we'll touch on, as well as Uno, just to give some insight to that.
Well, let's get them on. You can give them some introductions. Hey.
So we got Football Nelson on. Nelson, turn your mute off
your
there.
Mic.
And we got Phoenix. We've got Phoenix Mo in the building and Football Nelson. And there's 2 Mo's on the show tonight.
Can the show handle 2 Mo's?
I think it can.
I don't know if I can handle 2 Mo's. I'm not sure.
Battle the Mo's.
I think we'll be good. I think we'll be really good. So you guys give us a little brief introduction of yourselves. We'll start with you first, Football Nelson, and what sports you like, where you currently reside, and everything that's just kind of sports related that you love so much.
Sounds good. Well, my name is Nelson. I actually live in Tempe, Arizona. I absolutely love soccer. So football is the name, Football Nelson. I love basketball, NBA basketball, and I love motorsports, especially Formula One. So those are my big three. Also big in Major League Baseball. And pretty excited that spring training is going to start pretty soon. So that's definitely interesting. But yeah, that's what I'm all about. Just those four sports are.
Wait a minute, I see
basically
something on your shirt. Not to cut you off, I see something on your shirt here. You didn't represent there. What's that?
And yeah, that's Miami Heat right there, who was actually playing my buddy Mo's Golden State Warriors tonight. So that's going to be pretty interesting.
Awesome.
Oh, wow. All right, Phoenix Mo, you're up. What's up, Tara? What's up, JC?
So when I'm in Phoenix, I'm just Mo. But but when they put both of us in the room, we have to claim where we reside. So I live in Phoenix, Arizona. Actually, not too far from Nelson. He lives in Tempe, which is just another city in the Great Valley of Phoenix. I am, as not to blow people's minds, it's Phoenix Mo because I live in Phoenix, but I've always been a Golden State Warriors fan since I was 14 years old.
Okay.
So not a bandwagon fan. I've been there pretty much right at the tail end of Run TMC and all the horrible years in between until we got our most recent championship. So my loyalty has paid off. Okay. I love soccer like Nelson. Nelson probably watches more of the leagues. I like international soccer, so I watch the tournaments, World Cup, huge. And of course, WWE, big WWE fan, been watching it since I was a kid. And yeah, those are my main sports. And NBA, wow. Obviously.
And NBA, of course. No football, you notice, Mel, in this whole dialogue.
It's a good thing that football season's over with, even though I am enjoying a little FCL, which I will briefly discuss later on. However, I definitely want to have our guests kind of take over. And again, part of today's show will be make Mel want to watch WWE. Yes. Because I have zero desire at this point, but I need you guys to help me out.
We're gonna do.
Well, you're talking to Phoenix Mo because I don't watch any of that.
We're gonna do what they call in wrestling, which is to sell it. So I'm gonna sell it to you that you should watch wrestling.
Okay. I'm with it. Well, let's start right now since today was the first day of pitchers and catchers to report to spring training. You guys are in like the one of the two, which I guess is slightly three now, because usually it's Florida, Arizona for spring training, and now Florida is kind of divided up into two other little sectors, mini sectors, I guess. But first day of spring training, the vibe usually in Phoenix around this time is crazy because without COVID, everybody goes to Phoenix. It's February. It's still warm. It's not freezing, and it's not halfway in snow like the rest of the country. But COVID's changing things a little bit. Do you have any insight as to what's happening for this year's spring training? What the vibe's going to be like?
So the vibe is not necessarily the same as past years. So very unfortunate again. But I actually was talking to Vegas Mo a little while ago, and basically went to the Cubs training camp, the Cubs spring training stadium. Again, just to see if I could see any of the players there, but they were shutting everything off or shutting everything down. I couldn't see again anyone around there, but definitely not the same vibe. I mean, there's not a whole lot of people in town for spring training. There are going to be fans in the stands, which is good. They're already selling tickets, but again, it's going to be. I think it's going to be a very limited situation. Again, I wish it was different because I love going to spring training games. I mean, we have the Angels, we have the A's, the Giants, the Rockies, D-backs, and the Cubs here. So it's definitely really interesting. But this year again, it's going to be quite different.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Well, and I actually am making a trip out there in March. I think it's like the 12th or something. I'm hoping that I'll be able to access and get into at least a game or something, because it feels like it's been 10 years since I've seen anything live, especially as a fan. I mean, I don't know. I know, like, I have family in Seattle and friends that literally go to spring training every year and stay in Arizona for like a month, and they do this each year. And it seems like, unfortunately, and I know it's kind of like for us in Vegas, like when COVID shut down, it shut down a lot of the tourism. Well, I know spring training is a huge, huge moneymaker for Arizona and Phoenix in particular. It seems like, that's hopefully they'll be able to have some people in this so they can keep that income coming in and the revenue from it. But
yeah, I mean, and last year, I mean, when COVID hit, that's literally in the middle of spring training, so it was pretty bad. I mean, it was March, like all the games got canceled, like no fans and all that. So, I mean, you saw a lot of people in the city, but not necessarily they weren't doing anything. I mean, they were basically in their hotels. Restaurants started shutting down, so it was a very weird situation. So, I mean, hopefully this year is a little different. Again, not expecting to see the amounts of people that we normally get in previous years, but hopefully it gets better.
Wow. Yeah, I know. It's one of those things that I was like, okay, baseball season's here. I'm seeing posts about my Dodgers pitchers and catchers showing up for spring training. And it's like, oh, no one can even go and watch. You can't even go to bat day. You can't go to any of these things that happen around the time of the season. And now that the Padres just extended their shortstop for $340 million for the next quarter of a century, it seems. I mean,
14 years?
Yeah, 14 years is a long time. But you
just
you won't even be able to see him highlight on bat day or anything like that, or on catcher.
He deserves it, though. I mean, Fernando Tatis Jr., he is awesome.
14 years. I think he's great. Anyone commit for 4? I mean, oh my God, 14 years is a long, long time.
I mean, it's not a fair comparison, but I mean, it's the third largest extension ever. I mean, behind Mike Trout and Mookie Betts. So, I mean, you have to understand. I mean, this kid is young. He's 22 years old. He's gonna be in the league for a long time. One of the best shortstops out there. His rookie season was fantastic. So, I think he fully deserves that.
I'm waiting to see if he can, because the only payout I see from him, Bryce Harper, Mike Trout, the only one that's actually guaranteed their money and locked in a bag and deserved the bag was Mookie, because we got a World Series pennant out of it. Out of those 4. Yeah. So it's just one of those things to see if he does, but he is one of the all-time shortstops. But God, that's a long time. That's a huge commitment, but hey, $340 million. You sign it on.
Yeah, so. And he has a no trade clause too. So I mean, there's nothing they can do. He's locked in for 14 years. That's it.
Yeah, he's locked in. Yeah, that's crazy. That's gonna be insane.
Well, the Padres even be there in 14 years. That's what
I mean, another great question.
I mean, let's be real.
I guess we've all been asking ourselves that question, right?
Well, they got their fairly new stadium over there in downtown San Diego, and it's pretty nice.
It's a pretty stadium too.
It is a beautiful stadium. So I mean, I think they're in because they don't have anybody else. They got, they've lost their team, so they're probably going to be definitely invested in football baseball in the next 14 years. They ain't got a choice. They have no choice in the matter whatsoever.
But they don't have anything else.
They don't. They don't.
Everybody left.
They really
you had a team, you had a football team. Let's take it away from
you. For sure. So. I don't know.
I'm sorry, San Diego people.
At least we have beaches. They got beaches. I mean, that's part, it's a give or take. It's a give or take.
Yeah.
I mean, they got a good rock and roll marathon. That's about all I can say. Coronado's nice. Old Town's nice. They got a zoo over there. I mean, it's cool. I rode a camel years ago at the San Diego Zoo.
Oh my goodness.
Camel. So,
it's cool. They got Legoland.
I forgot about Lego and SeaWorld. Let's not give my buddy.
So maybe they don't need the sports.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't.
They may not.
Oh my
It's all about
God.
nature over there. It's all about nature.
Nature, yes. So Mo, can you tell us a little bit about your Phoenix Suns? They had an epic game yesterday against the Nets.
Yeah.
It was almost
pretty good game.
You guys were almost there. I mean, it's not your teams per se, but they were almost there as far as winning. And then here comes this guy named James Harden who does a clutch shot. And then you're just like, oh my God, what just happened? Did you see the game at all? Like
I did.
the Nets
I
are
have
on
on
this
the
road tour of
background.
the West, and the Lakers play them tomorrow. And from what I understand, there's no KD, and then we have no AD. So this road game series is going to be very interesting. I'm just curious to see, what are your thoughts as far as these Nets coming in and invading our West right now?
Well, let's start with the Suns. You brought it up, right? They started the game hot, and you know, I think they're carrying over some of that energy from when they were in the bubble, right? When they went undefeated, still wasn't enough to make it into the playoffs. They're a young team, right? They're hungry, they're young. They were really missing a little bit of leadership. They got that with Chris Paul, and they started the game perfect. I mean, Devin Booker was playing well to start off the game, but the Nets are an offensive juggernaut. Even with Durant not playing, Harden by himself puts up, 20 or so points a night. And I couldn't believe that it was an implosion at the end of the game. They completely just bombed it. It's interesting. The Nets experiment, I can't fully give it a grade yet because we still haven't really seen their big three play together at the same time, right? There's always one of them resting. At some games, two of them resting. Durant's out, hamstring injury. Kyrie comes and goes as he pleases, depending on his mental state, right? Mm-hmm. And Durant, and Harden, he has a case to prove, right? He pushed his way out of Houston. He's been getting a lot of bad rap, and so he has a lot to prove to say, yes, I shook up everything to get this done. I want to make sure that I'm worthy of this. That he has a point to prove. So I see him, out of those three, I see him being the hungriest, maybe the one out to prove the most. And it's funny because they're all, it's almost the Nets. When you look at the big three, it's the island of misfit toys. They've all been chased out or ran away from somewhere else. And they're looking for a redemption. But I think they're still in the mix. At some point, hopefully all three can play at the same time. And I really see them coming out of the East.
Yeah, I mean, you have to understand the Philadelphia 76ers are only, a 17-win team. That's like 8th place in the West for us, and like Golden State is double digits, and you guys are in the top 10 with the West as a conference. And so for the East, they really don't have much to battle. The West is actually the proven kind of thing that see what the Nets can actually do with these teams as they come on this West Coast tour. Now, you mentioned about James Harden and how his exit strategy was. What is your take on with Golden State losing KD? How did you feel about that? Getting KD, then losing KD, and then we're going to talk about what Draymond Green said at a his post-conference interview about the whole trade thing and how they did Andre Drummond when they were playing Cleveland the other night. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, let's not bring the traumatic past back again. when KD left Golden State, I saw it in a way. I saw it coming. The tea leaves were there. You could read the fine print that was what's going to happen. So that was unfortunate. And furthermore unfortunate was what happened with Clay. Right. KD was gone. Right. We figured that out. We saw it coming. It happened. And there was still hope to be competitive. You still had your nucleus. You still had the Splash Brothers. Right. In my opinion, biased as people may accuse me of, the best shooting backcourt in NBA history.
What?
Yep.
Okay.
The big words, dude.
Yeah.
That is, man.
And you have Draymond Green, right? The secondary playmaker, sort of the anchor of the team. But Clay going down twice, really, if you think about it, right? He had that first injury during that playoff run where KD also got hurt. Mm-hmm. So he was essentially out for a year. The hope that he'd come back again this year and then hurt himself again, I think in the preseason, ended his chances of. So it's sort of been a mini rebuild, if you will. And they've been dealing with injuries since. They don't have any big men right now. James Wiseman went down. Marquise Chris went down. Kevon Looney went down. And so they're being forced to play the style of play that they're usually known for, which is small ball, but which isn't necessarily optimal if you're playing another team with a dominant big.
Yeah, with a lot of bigs. And that's hard because we had tried to adjust to the small ball, but I think the Lakers and some other teams like Giannis and company and those that have gotten and recruited bigs have kind of shifted that whole kind of game sequence and play style to now bigger basketball. You got the Joker over there in Denver, another big. It's just it's definitely kind of an effect. But to be honest with you, I'm shocked that Golden State is doing as well as they are. I really did not expect them to have as many wins as they do right now and to be in the top 10 of the Western Conference.
Right. They're back in it.
Yeah, they are. So, and they're above 500. So, I mean, I can't be mad at what you guys are trying to do. Now, the other night.
I mean, their bench is playing pretty well, though.
Yeah, their bench is.
You got to give them that.
Not bad. Not bad. You guys still got a lot of Tito's on there, though. You know, I feel like it's just Steph Curry and Tito's. But the thing of it is I don't understand how, how long that's going to last where he's dominating in the shooting game the rest of the season. And we're just now coming up on All-Star and then after All-Star break when everyone turns it on. So I'm just kind of curious to see what your team does. But
well, there's one thing, sorry to interrupt, there's one thing to consider. I think that may have factored into this little swing. Remember, they acquired Kelly Oubre Jr. At the beginning of the season. He started the season playing horrendous. He had played in Phoenix, a couple of years, was one of the best players during, the last couple of year run. And they had Rubio, Oubre, obviously Devin Booker, and then a few other guys. So they were expecting him to come in right away and be that producer. He's rebounder, shooter, potential to have a double-double most nights, right? He's had a horrible start to the season. People are saying, well, he didn't know the system. It's a new place. He's trying to figure things out. But over the last week or so, it's been clicking. He's finally gotten out of his slump. He's shooting better. He's rebounding. It's consistent. And so I think, I wouldn't say it's all attributed to him because Steph Curry's a threat every night and he's been producing. But having Kelly Oubre now as an effective part of your offense and defense, right? He's doing a lot of rebounding, has helped them to kind of close out games. Mm-hmm. Andrew Wiggins, on the other hand, is still horrendous.
Yeah. Y'all got to do something about him.
He's a non-factor.
Man. Whoever has him on the fantasy league, I'm sorry for you. I don't even know if he's still, up on for free agent trade. I don't know, on Yahoo Fantasy for our basketball, because I would have never have grabbed him. I'm glad I didn't grab him because I just already knew. Yeah. So the night of the game against the Cleveland Cavaliers, Draymond had a lot to say because I was even watching some of that game, looking forward to seeing Andre Drummond, who to me is one of the most dominant centers still out there in the game, even though he's considered a vet. This guy averages 13 rebounds per game. I mean, he's a double-double guy. So for them to announce that he was suited up, then send him back to the locker room and put him in the street clothes and have him make him sit on the bench to announce a possible trade, it's just, oh my God, it's just unfathomable. And to Draymond's point, it's very embarrassing. And it's a wake-up call to the league that some of the hypocrisy when it comes to trades really needs to be looked at as far as teams and the players. What's your guys' take as far as that goes? Was he right or was he wrong in what he was saying?
I got to tell you, the whole Drummond situation stings me personally because he's on my fantasy roster. He's like one of my top 3-4 players, and he's not producing. And, I'm on the verge to lose to an inferior team, but that's neither here nor there.
Okay.
But,
2 in a row, buddy. 2 in a row.
I'm right there with you, Mo. I'm losing too. I mean, I'm close this match, but I don't know.
But you guys are playing each other this week. I don't know if you guys realize that.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Well, are we really playing? I'm beating Vegas, Mo. So it's all good. That's not a conversation.
You're barely beating me, Nelson. Honestly, like I can catch you at the end of the week. I'm sorry. You're 900.
You go ahead.
Whatever.
I'll keep streaming and I'll beat you. No big deal.
No, I think I got you this week. But anyway, I'm not.
All right.
So with you.
So the Drummond situation, and same thing with Blake Griffin, right? I mean that's to a lesser degree.
Yeah.
In terms of it happening, Draymond has a point, right? I mean, I'm trying to look at it from both sides to try to understand this a little bit better. He does have a point that players, especially obviously if you don't have a no trade clause, you're basically a chess piece and, a commodity to be moved around as well. I mean, I remember a few years ago that Harrison Barnes incident where he was in the game.
He was in the game on the court.
He was in the game.
Yeah.
And then somebody whispered something to him or, it came to him and then he disappeared into the locker room. The thing that irks me about this from the player's perspective is a lot of the times they don't hear about the trades directly, especially if they're in the game. One, I forget who it was, not too long ago, found out about a trade in a post-game interview. Mm-hmm. Oh, you were traded. How do you feel about the trade? And he's like, what happened? So I think that's unprofessional. I get it. Trades are part of the game. It's how the business works. But I wish the organizations had more courtesy to let their players know ASAP, certainly before a game. I mean, a trade doesn't magically happen in the middle of a game. There's a lead up to it. And so there's a potential for a trade to happen. Alert your players, right? I mean, it's a simple courtesy. I think that would eliminate most of this issue.
So did the trade go through? Sorry, because I'm still trying to work my way back into the NBA season. Football just ended, but did they actually trade him? Because I thought it was just the trade rumors or him being announced for trade.
They didn't trade him, neither Drummond or Griffin, but they basically announced that our intent is to trade them, and I think also partly, certainly at least with Drummond, somewhat with the agreement of the player. And part of the reason they're benching them is they don't want to hurt their trade value. The last thing you want is for them to get injured.
Because I'm like, well, why do you have to even bench just to know that you're being traded? Okay, well, let me still play at least. Let me keep loose. Let me do. Okay, I get it. So
right.
Plus, they wanted to analyze. They wanted to analyze Jared Allen too on that squad to see if he would be a good replacement to Drummond and see how his playmaking abilities will be. But I'm sorry, to give up Andre Drummond, I think is honestly ridiculous of what I've been seeing from this Cleveland team. Because to be honest with you, they almost took our Lakers when we were on our road stint. We almost lost to Cleveland because of Andre Drummond. Like, I mean, he was a huge factor and playmaker in that game. So for them to I just was shocked. Blake Griffin, not so much. I mean, he's got a $75 million bounty on him, but I mean, they can easily pay that probably when he goes somewhere else from Detroit. But I just don't. Oh, what happened? Okay. Don't understand where that
froze it for a minute.
Possibly can go. So
well, I think with the Cleveland trade, right? So that was a byproduct of the Harden trade, right? The three, actually 14, essentially 14 trade. From the Cavs perspective, two things were going on. Number one, Drummond has obviously, as you said, a more expensive contract, and it's an expiring contract, so it's a very lucrative trade piece. Come trade deadline, Jarrett was balling out in Brooklyn, cheaper contract, younger, and so they figured they'd bank on younger, cheaper center, longer contract, and keep kind of work him into the roster. Agreed, Drummond is amazing, and I think once that trade happened, most of us figured out the writing was on the wall for Drummond. In the beginning, if you kept track with the news and some of the interviews, they played it off to say, Drummond is still our guy. Jared is there to back him up. We're going to work, but slowly it started to become a timeshare. Drummond's minutes started to dip. So they're playing the same amount of minutes in the game. So you started to see the writing on the wall. So I wasn't surprised that this was what was going to happen. Blake Griffin, like you said, super expensive contract, super injury prone. That one could end up in a buyout versus a trade, because I don't think there'll be a lot of people that'd be willing to pick up that contract. Drummond may still get traded or bought out, but I think has a higher likelihood of getting traded versus being bought out like Griffin.
So what are you going to do with
I think that's still unfair, though. I mean, you should allow the players to decide where they want to go. I mean, that's one thing I like about soccer. The players are able to negotiate 6 months in advance before the contract expires. They can go to another team for free, or the other team may pay the cost if you want to get bought out ahead of time. So, I mean, you need to make it fair for both the team and the player. And the teams are also culprit of basically extending these long contracts to players that are injury prone, like Griffin, and just giving them all this amount of money that's worthless, right? In the long run, they know this guy's going to get injured. You're not going to get 100% out of him. You're probably going to get 50-40% out of him. So I think it's a very unfair situation. So I have to side with Green on that on his comments. So it's totally unfair.
Well, I think it's funny that like ownership and teams of the NBA are doing something like that. And on the flip side, we're hearing that the NBA is basically requesting some of these players to make announcements about wanting to promote the COVID vaccine. And a lot of them are like, why are we supporting this if we don't know what's going on? We don't know what the long-term effects are. And it seems like they're asking one thing for you to do because you should be a role model and a spokesperson, but at the same time, they're going to take advantage of you on the other end and put you on a bench when they want to keep you healthy for a trade. It's just, you think about the NBA being, sometimes better than its other league partners like the NFL and stuff. But then stuff like this happens and you're like, oh, well, maybe not so much. I don't know.
No, it's still better. Don't get me wrong. It's still better.
Yeah.
You got apples and night and day still. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done with the NBA, but they're making the progressive steps to do so. NFL, I'm sorry, they're just at a standing still. They're not moving. They're not budging or anything. So they definitely are on a more progressive path than that league for sure.
Yeah,
they are, but it's still a really crappy situation for the players. Look at all the games that have been postponed recently. It really sucks for the players not being able to. Yeah. So you saw it with the Pistons, you saw it with the Hornets, you're now getting with San Antonio. So it's like it's a never-ending story, right? But they're not taking the steps in the right direction. So I still see like some players, and again, those guys are in the locker room together, right? But you cannot control what they do outside in their personal life. So, and then the mask wearing the mask over here, the nose out, that kind of stuff. It's like, just do your part. If you don't want to, if you don't want to promote a vaccine or anything like that, just promote the best steps to avoid COVID, to avoid the spread. And I don't know, it's just a lot of things that are wrong. And again, you're putting the players at risk, but then if a player says something, then he gets fined thousands of dollars.
The All-Star game too. Like, you're going to bring players from each team that you're trying to keep separated, but you're going to keep them all together here for an All-Star game for just one day. So you're not even doing it it just seems almost ridiculous that this is still even happening.
And they're advocating to not play. You've got some outspoken players that are not saying we should play. The mayor, Keisha Bottoms, put out a tweet recently saying, we're full. Don't try to come to
Don't come to Atlanta to party. Which we already know everybody's already headed over there anyway.
That's going to fall on deaf ears and get ignored. Do you guys think that they should have bubbled again for this season?
In an ideal world, yes, but it's just logistically difficult, right? The reason the bubble worked is, so when COVID sort of hit full force in the States, right, around March, when it really, kind of caught the buzz, they paused. They paused the season, especially after Gobert got the contracted disease, one of the first players. Mm-hmm. They paused everything and had to reassess on what to do. So there was a gap of time to figure out. Players were sort of off the court. And then they came up with this idea of, we're only going to get select teams, put them in Orlando, and then just grind it out for the rest of, last few games of the season, start the playoffs. And that worked because you had a limited number of teams. And progressively, as time went on, some of those teams ended up leaving, right? If they got season ended or they got eliminated in the playoffs. But to do it now with the amount of teams, it's, and first of all, the players were so against it, right? People were complaining. LeBron was saying, right, it was a mental fortitude, endurance test, right? And they were really bothered by it. So it wasn't logistically possible. The players were already against the idea. Now, should we revisit the bubble come the playoffs this season? I think you can do that. That's a little bit more manageable. I don't know if the players will still be resistant against that. But, absent of just eliminating the games, I think they're doing the best they can in terms of the protocols that they have in place. It's not perfect by any means, but the idea of testing every day, diligent about contact tracing. That's why we have these postponed games, because the league is actually doing their due diligence to determine who is sick, who is has been in contact with someone that's sick, not just in the teams, right? Support staffs, their first contacts, in their personal life. They're doing the right thing. The best thing is to not have the games, right? Nobody's at risk. But if we're going to have the games, that's the best thing you could do. And the other thing I liked that they did is they split the season, right? And they didn't tell us what the second half, schedule is, because they anticipated that we're going to have these postponed games and then to work the schedule. They've already put in a couple of postponed games from this first half. We worked it back into the schedule of the first half. I think it just happened recently. What was it? Detroit. So Spurs were supposed to play Detroit, right? Spurs had that COVID outbreak. So Detroit couldn't play. And then I think it was Charlotte and Chicago. Charlotte was off for contact tracing a couple of games because they had just previously played the Spurs. So what the league figured out is, well, hey, Detroit can play, Chicago can play. They're right next to each other. They replaced that game, I think, for tomorrow or next couple of days. That game wasn't supposed to happen until the second half, the unreleased schedule. So it's figuring things on the fly, but I think the plan they have is the best possible considering the situation.
Well, it's not the best for me personally because I'm in this fantasy league with you guys, and I cannot get it together if these schedules keep changing and postponements with my players. I'm losing to Nelson currently right now, which is not a good look. I feel like I'll prevail by the end of the week. Karl Anthony Towns has been out for almost a month, and I just got him back, and now he's not even performing as well as I expected him to. And there's no one up for grabs on these trades or anybody I can just list as a free agent or anything to pick up someone else. I'm stuck with the players that I have, sadly.
It's just too risky right now.
We need your honest opinion. How is Mo doing? Vegas Mo doing in her first season?
Why are you trying to embarrass me
of NBA? I just want to ask because I know for me, I gave it up after like the first month. I couldn't handle it. I love fantasy football, but fantasy basketball is like fantasy football times 20. Like
on steroids.
On steroids. I couldn't handle it all. I couldn't do it. It's like my brother does the baseball fantasy too, but there's no way I could do it. So we'd like to have your take on how our Mo is doing in her first year in the NBA Fantasy League.
I think she's doing pretty well. Honestly, this is my first time doing fantasy anything. So the first 4 games, I think you were great. I mean, you were on a roll, but then you had some pretty big opponents. So I mean, you have teams who are absolutely loaded, like Mo's team. He's got a pretty decent team. Thankfully, I mean, this week all his players got hit by COVID, so he's doing really bad, and he's not gonna be number 1 anymore. And honestly, I think you're doing well. I think you're doing pretty well. I'm still gonna beat you, but I think you're doing well.
And keep in mind, it's 14 of us on this squad. This is the biggest. It's a huge roster of us playing, and I like that it's integrated. There, I'm not the only female. There's a few females out there that are actually doing much better than me. Where one of them is LeBron James is her name, and she's got this A-list squad, and we all try to knock her out, but she's kind of coming down a peg or two. Like she's not number 2 anymore. I think she's down to 6. I want to say I'm like at number 10 right now. So I'm not at the bottom, but I'll take where I'm at. Like I'm not tripping.
Mel, let me tell you what they're not telling you. So they're both trying to there's a race. They're both fighting to get the 8th spot. Let's just call a spade a spade.
They're fighting to get what?
The 8th spot. Like they're fighting to just get into
the playoffs.
To make it to the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that, but hey, that's what you need to do. You got at least if you can get there, because you can always take down the number 1 team come playoff time if that's the case. You don't have to,
That's true.
And Mo, with you being commissioner, can you give some tips as to how, if people wanted to get an NBA fantasy, what's the best strategy? Because I clearly missed the boat. You called me and like, Mo, you got a lot of point guards. But you don't have too many centers and you don't have enough forwards. Like, why would you pick all these point guards in your because I'm like, they score, they're shooters. And he's like, no, but you need rebounders, you need people that are assist leaders, you need all these things. And I never thought of it. I just looked at the player and was like, okay, let's roll with that. What tips do you have on the next season go round? Maybe Mel will play with us future, cool. If she's ready.
I got to answer about the WWE first, but we'll get there. So
that will go that route first.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a little bit background on my league, just to set the context to be able to answer your question. So I started this league about 10 years ago, and I've been commissioner since. And there's a core group of people, but there's always people that end up leaving. New blood comes in, like Mo and Nelson. And we play a head-to-head league, right? It's not a rotisserie league. And what that means is you actually play a different team every week. And you win by having the most number of fantasy points generated. And that's associated, at least with the NBA, points scored, assists made, rebounds, steals, blocks. Those count towards generating fantasy points. And then you have things that take away, which are turnovers and personal fouls. In my league, I have a little wild card, kind of like a joker element, where technicals, flagrants, and ejections usually would subtract from your fantasy total. But in my league, they actually add. So they're a weird bonus because you can't plan against flagrants and technicals and ejections, right? You don't know. They're kind of wild cards. And so to add more of a wild card element, if you get one of those, you get a lot of points, like based on, I think if you get an ejection, you get plus 15 points. So it's just sort of a wild card. But the other thing is, points are 1 point, but then rebounds, assists are 2 points each, those other stats. So you try to get players that, obviously that can fill up the points column, but you want players that can fill out the rest of those. Steals and blocks they usually don't happen very often in the game, or players don't have a lot of them, that even those that have a lot of steals and blocks average per game, they're not usually very high. So you usually want to bank points, rebounds, and assists. And so what Mo's referring to, in my league, you on a nightly basis, you have to play one of the 5 positions. You get 3 utility, which means they can be any positions. And then you have 5 bench. So you have a roster of 13. So when you're drafting, and draft night is the biggest, most critical aspect of this game. And both of these two...
I thought I was prepared. I was prepared. I wrote on a piece of paper all my tops.
I'm going to tell Mel, I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to tell Mel your drafts. We're going to get to that. I don't want to embarrass you right away, but it's hilarious.
God.
So draft night is huge because it's auto draft. 50 minutes before we enter the virtual draft, the computer, Yahoo determines the drafting order randomly. There's no
for auto draft.
Thank God for auto draft. And so, so that determines a big thing, right? Your draft order could be a huge deal, but on top of that, who you draft is more important because that's the beginning of your team. The other issue when your league has as many players as we do, 14. Usually I like to keep it 10 or 12, but we have 14 this year. By the time you're drafting, probably after the 4th, maybe 5th round of drafting, you're done with the good players. You're drafting scrubs at that point. So it becomes even more competitive. Your top players aren't the biggest deal, unless you didn't draft top players. We'll get to that in a bit, Nelson. But your sort of mediocre players, that's where you focus your action, the bottom part of the draft, because you want to pick try to find a gem in the rough or players that could still give you some consistent level of production. And so it gets really competitive. And so once the draft is done, there's still a number of players that are undrafted. And as the season goes, players get injured, new players emerge, right? They suddenly get better, good players get worse. And so you start to pick from the free agents or the waiver wires, we call it, those that were undrafted to fill out your roster. But once again, as the season progresses, more of that happens. 14 teams, that gets really thin. And that's the situation that Mo finds himself in, is a lot of those good players have been picked out already. And so you're either hoping for an injury where some, second stringer becomes a starter, or someone who is already injured suddenly comes back. So.
Now, in instances like right now with the COVID and quarantine and pandemic, I know that usually there's an IR spot for your top players that are injured and put on a side, kind of like in football. Did you, as a commissioner, make any adjustments for COVID? I know when I was a commissioner for my football, I actually added an extra IR spot. So that way, in case, COVID hit one of our teams hard, at least we'd have a couple spots to throw them to maintain those players and not have to drop them. So I'm guessing that's no.
No, he didn't do that.
Nope.
He didn't do that.
This dude is a dictator, let me tell you that, man.
I got Aaron Gordon. He's injured now, and if I need him, I have to just play him as an injury and get no points off of it in the roster because he did not cater to us on that.
There is no
unless you want to drop him, and then I'll be there to pick him up later.
No, I'm not dropping Aaron Gordon.
So I don't know.
I'm not doing that.
Just a thought.
That's what got me on the roll of winning was him, his helping him, and that. But now that he's on the injured, it's a mess. It's a mess for him, but it's a learning experience.
Well,
I appreciate you breaking it down.
I'm excited for you guys. I look forward to hearing who makes the playoffs. But here,
Can I tell you the draft order? I can't. We have to do this. It's just.
Come on, dude. They have to bring that up, bro.
You don't have to bring it up.
I want you.
This is not the playoff
show here, Phoenix. So we've got
it's the first time on the show, dude.
Yeah, let's talk about
it. Who do you want to start with? Let's do Nelson. His is even egregious.
I think
I don't think we have enough time.
We're done. So we can move to the next topic, please.
Well, he can. Here's the deal. You are welcome to post that later on, and you can put it publicly. You can go and take a screenshot, add it to Facebook, tag us all. We'll throw it in the chat.
Mel's shutting it down.
Mel saved you guys. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes, she did.
I actually have questions for Nelson because I've never really been a soccer fan. I know I'm from Seattle. We've got our team up there that I've but they're a great team. But I haven't been a Sounders fan my whole life. Like I've been like, oh, okay. We came out here. We started covering the Lights team, soccer team out here, and I began. Okay, I'm starting to understand a little more soccer, get it. But here's some things that I don't understand. Why are there so many leagues? I don't get it. Whenever I look on my ESPN after the Champions League, the Premier League, La Liga, English League. I mean, it's like, how do I tell the difference? Are they all the same? Are they all professional? Are they all? I'm lost.
That's a very, very good question. So basically, soccer is structured completely different than any other sport. For example, NBA, you don't have relegation. So teams in soccer, they play so they can stay in the Prime League. So La Liga, the Premier League in England, you have the soccer tournaments in Brazil, all over South America, and all over the world. I mean, every single country will have their own league. But they also have B League, they have C League, then they have fourth league, and that's how they go. That's how it goes. So the top teams will go to like a Champions League, which is another tournament. So there's like a ton of tournaments that go on when you're talking club level. But then the bottom three will go to the second division. That's bad. That's really bad. I mean, and then the top three from the second division will go up, which is kind of cool. I mean, you give teams the opportunity to experience that. Some teams are actually very successful by doing that. Some teams get money from, like, I don't know, like famous people will purchase these teams. Like, for example, Liverpool is owned by the Red Sox owner. So there's a lot of connections between the U.S. right now and European soccer. But it's actually pretty cool, and that actually brings a lot more competition, because again, good players, they want to sign for like big name teams like Real Madrid, Barcelona, Manchester United, like those kind of teams. Those are like the key teams that everyone wants to play at. But it's actually very, very cool. So that's how it works. The American League is a little bit different. American League doesn't have relegation, unfortunately. I think that's good for the sport, because you actually will make teams work towards the objective of winning the league, right? Over here, it's like teams are like, okay, I finished last, no big deal. I'm not going anywhere. I'm still staying in the Premier League here, or the MLS, and I'm not going anywhere. So I think that's they need to change that. But I do see the money value, right? I mean, you have all these supporters. You're from Seattle. Seattle's probably got the best team, I think, from a fan base perspective, in the country, followed by Portland. Actually, those two teams are like, they're fantastic, and they have a pretty big rivalry too. So that's I like that soccer is taking off here now. The last couple of years have been fantastic. Actually, I wanted to touch base on something that happened last week, which is the International Champions Cup. So every single continent, so CONCACAF from North America, the Caribbean, and Central America, CONMEBOL from South America. So all these confederations, the winner of the Champions League of each confederation goes to a specific country. Usually it's Japan or the UAE. This year was in Qatar, I believe. And so you had Bayern Munich, which is probably the best team for the last couple of years. They're German giants. You had Tigres from Mexico, who actually beat LAFC in the Champions League for CONCACAF. And Tigres actually made it to the final. It's the first time ever that a team from CONCACAF makes it to the final. So they played against Bayern Munich, and they lost 1-0. But that's a huge win right there in their books, right? I mean, you're thinking about the first North American team that actually made it to that instance, and that's huge. I mean, you see that progress from North American football, and I'm pretty excited about this. Then we have the World Cup in a few years here in 2026, I believe, that we're going to have the World Cup here in the U.S., Mexico, Canada. So
like the granddaddy, right? It's like the World Cup is like the granddaddy, like the World Cup is like the granddaddy. Like
that's where you get all the best players from every single team representing their country. So that's like the ultimate experience. That's where you want to be. You want to be in the spotlight, and then. I'm sorry.
Are you playing for that? I mean, aren't you having to like qualify like a year or so or more in advance to like work?
Yeah, so you still have your duty. So think about it from this perspective. So you have the NBA team that goes to the Olympics, or I'm sorry, the basketball team that goes to the Olympics, all made by it consists of NBA players, right? So the best players from each one of the teams, that's where the head coach will actually go ahead and pick and choose from each one of the teams. Kind of the same thing goes for soccer. I mean, they can play in any country in a league setting, and then the manager will actually call them up. Hey, you're gonna come. You're gonna come. Usually they pick 3 or 4 players from each position. They make up a squad of 23 people, 23 players, and they all go to the World Cup. But then you have the injuries too. So it's been pretty sad in the last few World Cups. You see a lot of players that are really, really good, and they get injured right before going to the World Cup. That's heartbreaking because, I mean, you see it more and more. And these guys are getting overworked recently because of COVID. They're having to play a very, very tight schedule with a lot of games during the week. Usually you play 1 game a week or 2. That's it. Now they're playing 3-4 games a week, which is pretty heavy when you're playing 90 minutes. And again, you only get it's divided in 45 minutes per half, and then you only have a 15-minute break in between. That's it. That's all you get. Wow. It's not like basketball that you can go sit down, have a timeout. No, this goes on, and that's it. It's nonstop. So
that's
what we have for football.
There's no breaks to advertise.
So JC Coutinho, I'm trying to pronounce the name, says usually is Europe versus Coutinho is usually Europe versus South America finals.
Yep.
That is correct.
Wow. Okay.
That's the way it is. Only one African team has made it, or Asian team actually has made it to the final, and this is the first time for North America. So good for Tigres. It's pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So, yeah. So the World Cup is going to be here in 2026, right?
2026. Pretty excited.
In LA or where?
Where?
They're spreading it across the country.
Oh, wow.
It's actually 3 countries. So it's going to be Mexico, US, and Canada. It's going to be a joint World Cup.
America. Gotcha.
Wow.
So
one of the cool things
the first game is going to be in Mexico City.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. One of the cool things.
So you're going to go? If you're able to, well, we should be able to go by 2026, God willing. Are you going to go?
We've actually been planning about going to Qatar in 2022, so next year.
Next year, if it goes.
I think we are going to make it, and it's going to be the first World Cup in winter time. It's usually in the summer, like in between June and July. So this time it's going to be in November and December. So pretty exciting. Again, completely different part of the world. Most got the connections though, so I'm leaving it all up to him. So
all right, Phoenix
hopefully we get to make it happen. Phoenix Mo.
It'll be the first time it's hosted in the Middle East. It's never been hosted in the Middle East, so that's kind of a big deal.
Nice.
But yeah, the cool thing about the one that's going to be in quote unquote North America, the three-way host of Canada, Mexico, and US, is they're going to actually expand the number of teams in the World Cup. Usually the number of slots per continent are different, and they're heavily European. Most of it's Europe. Then you got South America, North Central, Caribbean has a smaller slot. Africa only has like 5 players or 5 teams. Asia only has like 3 to 4. So I think they're going to add a little bit more parity in the 2026 one. Because yes, it's always Europe. Yes, it's always South America. But I'd love to see, me personally, African team make a big breakthrough, or an Asian team, or even North American team. Just to witness history, right? To have a big first of teams from continents that haven't made it this far, deep or to the finals, really get to do that. So that'll be exciting. I think it'll change the landscape of the tournament significantly. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah. Well, they've been expanding it for the last few years. Go ahead, Mel.
No, please. I was only going to give us a little Serena Naomi update.
Oh yeah, please do. Give us an update, because it's on. I can't see the score.
We're 1 set in, and Naomi is up 6-3, and they're into set 2.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
You guys have any? You guys have any preferentials on who wins this Australian Open between these two ladies, or you're indifferent?
I think it's going to be Naomi. She's younger, she's quicker. And don't get me wrong, Serena's a vet, right? I mean, she's a vet, but I think Naomi's got the edge on her. Just more athleticism. She's younger. Serena just hasn't looked like Serena the last few times I've seen her in tournament. It's not, classic Serena. And, Father Time is undefeated.
I was surprised that she was 10th seed too here. It says she's 10th seed.
Yeah, 10th seed. Yeah, 3. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
The youth, the fountain of youth is coming through.
I'm telling you, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough.
Okay, guys, I think we need to talk a little WWE before it's time to break free here, because here's the deal. And I know we have a couple guys in our group who continuously post about WWE and the, I guess, players, wrestlers, actors, whatever you want to call them. And I just need to understand, like, why is it so? What is the attraction to WWE besides the fireworks and the costumes and the flipping off the top? What do you call them?
The ropes. Yeah.
Oh, I don't help me understand why I need to tune into something. Whenever I see like Friday night, whatever it is, SmackDown or something, I'm always like, why do people watch this on a Friday night? What are we doing?
Well, one of the ways I like to describe wrestling, it's a soap opera, but it's a soap sports opera. It's a soap opera in sports. But really, I've only tuned in back. I've watched it on and off throughout the years, and I've kind of tuned in. Certainly since the pandemic hit, a lot of TV, there weren't a lot of shows. We're rolling slowly more back into having more TV shows. So no sports for a while. And so one of the things I was consistently on was wrestling. So I got back into it last year. One of the things that has impressed me, and this is my first pitch to you, Mel.
Okay.
Is actually the female wrestlers. Women wrestling today is just phenomenal. I would even argue, at least in one of the brands. So they have, you touched on it. There's several shows under the WWE. They have, Monday Night Raw is the big one. It's the classic 3-hour show. And then you have Friday Night SmackDown. I agree. Time placement is not ideal, right? Friday night. But we're in a pandemic, so maybe people are home. But they have their third less popular show, but I think is really impressive, is on Wednesday night, tonight actually, it should be on right now, is NXT, which is kind of their talent development show. So a lot of the new talent they hire or they bring in from overseas, they usually tend to start them in that show. And so you may not have as many big names, but eventually with time, they sort of shine, they get more following. they tend to get bumped up into those two other big shows. But one of the things that's impressed me the most is the female wrestling division, especially in this NXT development show. I mean, they are rough, they are tough. Some of the craziest wrestling I've seen, high flyers, technical moves, and they're women. And I would argue the women on that development show are even better than the ones that are on the two premier shows, because they're trying to crack the business. They're hungrier. They tend to be younger, so they're more athletic. And I mean, some of the stuff I hadn't seen in years. I mean, just crazy wrestling maneuvers. And this is to contrast that, a few years ago, they used to call the female wrestlers divas, which
I remember that.
Is, maybe when you really look at it holistically, it's not as flattering, right? I'm like, well, they're wrestlers. Why not just also call them superstars like you call your male wrestlers? And so I think the women's division in wrestling has just exploded. And in fact, I would say up until recently, because this wrestler ended up getting pregnant, and so she had to kind of go off show, the best wrestler they had that attracted the biggest draw, men, women alike, was a female wrestler by the name of Becky Lynch. I don't know if you've heard of her. And she was so badass that her moniker, they used to call her the man. I am the man, Becky Lynch. I mean, it was phenomenal. She has the hugest fan following, bigger, at least when she was still wrestling before she went on maternity leave. Wow. The biggest, honestly, had the biggest wrestling following, most popular than any of the male wrestlers. So the women's division, honestly, right now, is the selling point for me. And I hope it's the selling point for you too.
I will see what I can work out on.
It's a Wednesday night, Mel.
Here's the deal, and here's my other thing too with wrestling is I feel like, especially during COVID, I feel like the one sport that would really need the fans there would be wrestling. And so it felt like if we can't I feel like fans help you get the energy for the wrestlers to do their thing. So I'm like, well, now I really don't want to watch because there's no fans there. You can't get pumped off and no fans to wrestle and throw down. And I don't know, I guess I'm kind of, I'm a 80s-ish baby-ish. And so I grew up on like wrestling, like we know Hulk Hogan. I watched part of Dwayne The Rock Johnson's show yesterday that had premiered, and I didn't realize that his dad was like friends with Andre the Giant and the Samoan Brothers and Junkyard Dog and all that stuff. So I was like, those are people that I remember, and I just, like you mentioned, it's a soap opera. Well, I haven't watched soap operas since I was a kid, and people that watch soap operas now, I feel like are like my mom. Or like people that are stuck at home from school and have to watch it with their parent or grandparent or something. So
it's a really good soap opera.
I still watch the stories. I only watch Young and the Restless when I can catch it. Like,
but it's amazing because it's the same people that are still there.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, how are you
still crazy? That's too crazy.
Like, what are you doing?
Absolutely. I mean, and
Botox.
Y&R. I love it.
Oh my God.
I will say, I'll just add another potential hook because you said you have appreciation for those old school wrestlers. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of prodigies now, second generation, that are connected, and you said The Rock comes from a huge wrestling family. His cousins or sort of cousins second remove or nephews, however you want to call it, they're in the business. And they're some of the biggest wrestlers right now. Ric Flair's daughter, huge wrestler, Charlotte Flair, connected to The Rock, his cousins, Jimmy and Jay Uso, his other cousin second remove, I think, Roman Reigns, currently the champion on SmackDown.
See, this could be your selling point right here. That there's people that I do know who's now have, okay.
And once in a while, the legends, they call them legends, all the retired ones that are still alive that they come on the show. They come on, they mentor, they do one of the nights beginning of the week is called Legends Night, where all, as much of them that they kind of pop in around the show. So yeah, there's definitely connections to the past, to the history. The Rock, could show up on occasion. And the key thing about this period is we're on the road to WrestleMania. So WrestleMania is the biggest pay-per-view that happens in March. And in January, they have the Royal Rumble, which had just happened, where the winner, it's sort of like a 30 man, 30 woman, throw them off the top rope, last man, woman standing, gets the title match at WrestleMania. It's a big deal. And the female Royal Rumble, someone new won it for the first time. Great athlete by Bianca Belair from Tennessee.
Bianca, yes. Someone posted that in the group. I still didn't know who it was, but now I know. So I feel okay.
Good. So you're tracking. So she's going to headline WrestleMania. That's a big deal.
Okay.
And she's, there's a lot of charisma and character. I'll be honest with you. The draw for me isn't the technical aspects, the wrestling. It's the personalities. It's the storylines. It's the flair, the charisma. It's the pageantry of it, so to speak. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I may check one out. Because football's over with. I have nothing to do on Mondays or Sundays anymore. I maybe Wednesday after a show, maybe I'll DVR it or something and check one out. But thank you, I appreciate that. So
that's right.
Shout out to Chris Rhodes, our guy that is always posting. Shout out to Arlington. He actually loves WWE. So we have some guys in our group that actually, and we never talk about it. So it was perfect that you guys were on, and I knew you were into that. So
yeah,
thanks for breaking it down, and hopefully Mel will get sold into it. I'm done. I mean, I watched Total Bellas. I watched the reality side of it. That whole drama, and I never liked the Bella Twins. I watched MTV's Tough Enough when they were competing on who could be the next potential pro wrestler when Tough Enough was on, and that kind of thing. So I'm
I think that was one of my issues is because remember the Miz, whatever. Like when I saw him on a reality TV show on MTV, I was like, why is he a wrestler now? I was like,
oh yeah.
If you can go from reality TV to wrestling, I don't think wrestling's a sport no more. Like I'm done. That's how I felt. Like seeing these people that are just like famous because they were on a reality show now are becoming a professional athlete. Like, come on, no. But I think I can give it a shot. I think maybe for WrestleMania I'll be able to tune in.
Yeah.
I think you hurt them in the heart when you said it wasn't a sport.
Well, that's what some people. I mean, my feeling was, how is this guy just gonna, in his mid-20s now, gonna be a professional?
I mean, from watching Tough Enough and the grueling exercises,
you just walk into at middle of your 20s.
I don't know.
They train. I mean,
they do train.
Legit.
It's intense.
I don't question their ability or their physical, but it's like, even in like cheerleading or something like that, like you are usually doing it for a while before you make it to a professional level. Like you don't just walk and become a LA Clipper or a LA Laker girl. Like you're not just going to go, hey, I went from reality TV show and now I'm going to be a Laker girl the next year. Like that doesn't happen. Like
I think Miz is the exception. I think a lot of them do train from a young age. I mean, I think about The Rock or, some of these other athletes, some of the more famous wrestlers, they've been doing it for a while. They've been training for.
Also was in sports. Like he played in college, and he played, and his family was all in it, so he was around it as a young kid. So, but okay, I will give it a shot. I can't guarantee when, but I will give one. Before we close out the show, we do a girl power, and Mo hit me to this girl power today. Our girl Liz Cambage from our Las Vegas Aces. Is now a spokeswoman for Rihanna's Fenty beauty product.
The first professional athlete to model for this.
And if you guys know Liz Cambage and you follow her Instagram, she got some hot shots for her.
Oh yeah, she's all about her body. She's very comfortable with her body, and she does not mind showing it. And big ups to her, because for that to be the Savage Fenty, that lingerie line side of hers, the side of Rihanna's Fenty beauty, it's huge. Like it's hot. It's hot. She looks great, and it's going to be pretty cool. Yeah. So,
but to wrap up our Michael Jordan birthday, our GOAT birthday today, I just wanted to see if anybody wanted to share like their favorite MJ, memory, or their favorite, Jordan sneaker, or any of the above. Feel free. We know Mo's. Actually, mine are the Oreos. I still love my Oreos.
I have the Oreo 4s too, but I don't want to pull those out. I was just going to pull out the signature colorway that he's actually played in. So I was like, I'll just pull out my 3s. Yeah. But I do like my 4s, and I like my Legend Blue 4s. I've got a lot of J's. We like J's. Yeah. What about you fellas? You guys got some stories? I know you have a Kevin Garnett story. We'll have to save that for another day, Mo, because I know you have a Kevin KG story. But Nelson, any particular MJ moments that kind of gotcha?
You can go ahead, Mo. I only have bad stories from Michael Jordan because he beat. Not in a bad way. He just beat the Supersonics and he beat the Phoenix Suns. So I think my connection's going out. So later, guys. Just kidding.
Oh, now your connection's going out. Okay.
I cannot hear you. Sorry.
Okay.
So I guess you could say MJ is what got me into the NBA. So I remember my very first NBA game. So a little backstory. So my dad lived for a while in Chicago, right? He's like big Chicago, fan guy in the 60s, right? And so growing up, when we were overseas, I just remember I was 12 or 13. It was basically, I'm going to give my age away, that finals where they played the Suns. And I remember just hearing about it and my dad talking about, Chicago Bulls. I was like, I don't know Bulls basketball. I don't know anything. But he just kept talking about it. It's like, there's a game that's going to be on TV, Michael Jordan. I said, I don't know what that is. Looks interesting. My dad likes it. I like my dad. I said, Dad, can we get some pizza? He goes, yeah, why do you want pizza? It's like, so we can watch the game. He's like, what game? What? You don't even know anything about it. So all I remember, my first memory of watching basketball is eating pizza and watching Michael Jordan destroy the Suns, not realizing many years later I would be living in Phoenix and looking at that moment differently. So that's
what
my
about you, Mel?
memory.
I've been watching him since I was a kid. Like, that's obviously how I started loving basketball. Now I don't watch basketball as much, but back when I was younger, when I was between like the ages of like 7 and like 17, that's all I watched was basketball. And it was all about Michael Jordan. It was always about the Bulls. Every game, it seemed like, was amazing for Michael Jordan. And I think for me, when they came to Seattle to play in the finals and they were playing here or playing in Seattle while I was there, I was like, I felt like I was even closer to him because he was in Seattle, even though I didn't get to go to the game. And whether they beat him or not, it still didn't matter to me. I mean, I love my Sonics, but Jordan and the Bulls were always my number one. Yeah. But I do remember a time when I was a little bit older, I went somewhere. I met this guy and we went out and he had known Michael from some, previous stuff or whatever. And so Michael had always had this golf tournament in Santa Barbara, and he had always had a basketball camp in Santa Barbara at one of the high schools out there. And he also did a golf tournament while he was there. Well, we had come in contact with him, but this is before like your phone was your camera. This is like when you actually had to carry a camera. Of course, I'm not carrying a camera, and I get to meet him, and I was just like, "Wow,
that's awesome!
That is awesome."
You can't be like, "Hang on, let's go find my Canon camera somewhere. I need to take a picture." You can't do that. I look like an idiot. Like I'm a 20-year-old person. I shouldn't be like that crazed out. But I was like, you've been God for so long. I think if you saw my room when I grew up, you think just this is bad. Like I had every inch of every wall, every ceiling was, I'd say 95% Michael Jordan.
Wow.
Fangirl awesome. For real. Fangirl for real. I mean, you've got to admit that the guy is all time. And despite the debates between him and LeBron, he is the greatest, because my thing is, and this is the argument I have, that he supersedes any other athlete in the league right now of why Michael Jordan is great. Do you know how many body blows and elbows to the face and punches he literally took going into the paint? You cannot touch a player now without them screaming bloody murder. Not only is LeBron getting the best award for the flopping and not even being touched, but you literally will get technical fouled, if not flagrants, probably a flagrant 3, if we're still playing under those conditions that Michael Jordan had to play under. To me, and he never complained. He never whined about it. He never reported it. It was part of the game. He did it, and that's what makes him GOAT status, in my opinion. Yeah. Now,
and you got to realize,
I agree with you.
In the early part of his career in the 80s, flagrant fouls didn't exist. Right?
There you go.
There were no flagrant fouls.
No,
somebody could get.
It's a completely different sport back then, man.
The Pistons would have all been sitting on the bench by that time.
Easily. They would have been tossed out, ejected, all of that. But real quick before we go, guys, what were your thoughts with Tom Brady, the GOAT conversation with him throwing the Lombardi trophy and having Lombardi Lorraine or Lombardi Linda or whatever you want to call her complain about, the fact that, oh, my dad, is a silversmith. He handcrafted this. And mind you, I got to give it up to the silversmith because it's from the house of Tiffany. It doesn't get any better than that when it comes to silver because it's Tiffany. But once it's in their possession, isn't it theirs? Can't they just do whatever they want with it? And if I'm not mistaken, the time that they did win as a Patriots, Gronk dented one Lombardi trophy with the baseball being thrown at it. He was playing bat. He was using it as a bat, and it dented it. I didn't hear her say anything then. What is your guys' take as far as him doing that toss and the epic boat parade that we're all talking about?
I think it was pretty cool. That's it. I mean, they can do whatever they want. They were celebrating. I mean, we've been in lockdown for like a year. I mean, these guys were actually doing their thing. They can do whatever they want with that trophy. I mean, it's awesome. They earned it. They won it, and you can do whatever you want. No big deal. I mean, if it would have gone to the bottom of the ocean, they would have recovered it. I'm pretty sure they would have. So no, there's no issues.
There was divers on call, right?
People like
there were divers on call.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I mean, it's like people like to complain a lot these times. We have to be a little bit less, a little bit more happy about these kind of situations. I mean, everything's recorded now. I get it, but I think we need to be a little bit more flexible with what famous people do, especially athletes. I mean, let them do their thing. I mean, they're just having fun. That's it.
Yeah.
End of story.
Especially when hockey players can eat cereal out of the Stanley Cup, they drink out of it, they do all kinds of things, So
sanitation
another thing of silver that gets passed around, and they do what they want. What'd you say, Mike?
Yeah.
I said the eating out of the Stanley thing is like a sanitation hygiene issue. I mean, that's
I won't happen anymore now that COVID's been a
I don't know if they're going to do that anymore, but the beer drinking and all that was definitely one of those things they were doing off of the treasure cup. I get it. Yeah. But I just thought that was so crazy.
Brady got a little litty,
He did.
He really did.
He really did.
He really did. He really did. You guys were waiting for me. So, Mo, they have a thing where they make fun of me in conversation when we're talking, that when they say something, instead of saying I agree with you, I just say, oh, it really is. Or they really do. Or they really something with really in it. It really is, and that's their
really
infamous catchphrase with me. But the crazy thing about that situation was Tom Brady's 8-year-old daughter was even kind of protesting him throwing it. You can hear her.
No, Daddy,
Daddy, no, don't do it. Don't do it. Because, kids think, okay, it's something, it's nice. They're not supposed to play with it. So, Dad, why are you playing with it? But, it was just an all fun. It was they're going to make the catch. It's heavy enough. It's not going to. They're not. And
it's Tom Brady throwing it like
exactly, like he doesn't miss. So come on. Yeah.
It would be a bigger news story if he did, right? If Gronk doesn't catch it, then it would be, we can ha about it now and it's all good, and but I think we'd be looking at a completely different situation if that trophy did end up at the bottom of the water.
Oh my God! If it did, it'd just be like, oh well. I don't know what
well, we know it's there.
Yeah, it's in Tampa.
It's right there.
Another one I'm sure would get.
That'd be a great championship tour to go on. And now we're going to go underwater to check out the Lombardi Trophy from our Super Bowl team this year.
There you go.
Exactly.
Tourist attraction.
Yeah. All right, guys. We are over our time. However, I may have been convinced to watch WWE. I did learn a little something about football. And I know both myself and Mo really appreciate having you guys on today to kind of give us a little other perspective that we usually don't engage with much on the show. So it was nice to get those topics. It was nice to hear about Mo's and Nelson's fantasy basketball leagues. Phoenix Mo will wait for you to send us some pictures on those drafts so we can follow up with you on that.
I'll embarrass them later.
Oh my God.
Thank you guys so much.
Yes, thank you so much, guys. Appreciate you.
It was a pleasure to be
Thank you, ladies. Thanks for having us.
Love your show.
Thank you.
All right, you all. We'll be back next Wednesday. Catch you then. Make sure you subscribe, share, tune in. And also, we are also on 247amradio.com. You can catch the recap of our show on Tuesdays the night before, as well as the live show on Wednesday. So make sure to take that into consideration as well for your viewing pleasure. And that's it for us. Catch you later.
We're out. Sure.